Welcome back to another episode of the Brown Sugar Cafe podcast, the place where poetry meets conversation. I'm your host, Terrence P. Elmore, and before we get into today's topic, make sure you hit that plus sign so you don't miss an episode. Also, please subscribe to my blog, thebrownssugarcafe.blog, and if you find any value in this episode or any other episodes, make sure you leave a heartfelt review. So with that being said, let's get to it. Welcome back to another episode. I hope that you all are doing well. I hope that you all are taking care of yourselves. The weather is finally getting cold outside. Make sure that you're bundling up, making sure that you're safe out there. This is a time of year where it gets dark early and, it's a little more dangerous outside. So be mindful. The other day I was driving and somebody was walking across the street in all black. Even though it was 6 o'clock in the evening, it still was dark. So please be careful out there. And today is just like any other day. We have another special guest. Go ahead, introduce yourself.
My name is Xavier Blake, and I am the Executive Director at One Columbia for Arts and Culture, the local arts agency for the City of Columbia.
Xavier, thank you for joining the show. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to, sit here and talk with us.
No, I appreciate you having me. I know we've been trying to connect for a minute, and I've been canceling on you, but life happens. But thanks for being patient, and thanks for the grace, and I'm really, really happy to be here.
Hey, you were rescheduling, and that's different from canceling. Some people just cancel it. You never hear from them again, but you were very adamant about making sure that we do this. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely.
We've been doing a little talking during the pre-show, of course, but, let the people know a little bit about your background.
Yeah, so I'm born and raised in South Carolina. I went to school at Newberry College. I majored in communications. Grew up in a little small town called Bamberg, South Carolina, about an hour from Columbia, a little country town. I tell people we got 2 stoplights, and one of us is a flashing stoplight, but I wouldn't have it no other way. I love my hometown very much, and I'm really blessed to have grown up there. Like I said, I got my degree at Newberry College. Graduated there, played baseball up at college there. Loved it. Also,
Okay.
Small place, small city, which kind of welcomed me and made me feel at home. I graduated there and I got a job down in Columbia at South Carolina Educational Television, where I started out on the floor crew. So we did all the studio productions there in the building, all the studio shows. I eventually worked my way into the field production, where I would go out and do shoots and for content. Then I kind of became a producer, director, and kind of a lead videographer there at that station. I spent 23 years there. Really enjoyable. I love traveling across the state, telling South Carolina stories. Did some really good work. It's really great work inside South Carolina, outside of South Carolina, even internationally. I had the opportunity to travel to Sierra Leone back in 2019 and shoot a documentary on the Gullah Geechee folks and the enslaved people that came across in the transatlantic slave trade, which was fantastic. I was able to work with Cecil Williams on a documentary about his life, which was also amazing. So I did some really great work there. I moved on from there, I think in 2022. I took a job in upstate New York at a little TV station called WMHT, which is also a PBS affiliate. Also an incredible place to work. Did some really great work there as well. My job there was I was the content and engagement manager. So I helped kind of set our content strategy for the station along with my vice president of content. It was really a wonderful place to work. But I was cold up there for a southern boy. And then we had some family stuff going on, so I needed to get back down south. And so I took a job at the Nickelodeon Theater. I was on the board of the Nickelodeon before I left. I was actually the board chair of the Nickelodeon Theater before I left South Carolina. And so when I came back, I knew they had an opportunity that they needed some person there to kind of work on content engagement and community engagement stuff. And so they hired me on to be a community program and engagement coordinator. I love that position there at Nickelodeon. We did some really great work at Nickelodeon, bringing in new audiences to the theater, expanding who was welcome in the theater. And it was great. And then One Columbia came calling. A good friend of mine was on the board at One Columbia, and she said, hey, we got a vacancy. It's been vacant for almost a year. Are you interested in applying for the ED job? And I said, absolutely not. I said, I've changed jobs 3 times in the last year. I said, my family is saying, are you crazy? What are you doing? You need to kind of settle down a little bit. And she said, well, just send me your resume and tell me what you think. And so I did. And the interim ED at the time was a lady named Marjorie Reese, who's done arts administration for over 40 years. She's an incredible woman, a leader, advocate for the arts. And she and I had lunch, and we talked for about 3 hours, 3 4 hours. And she talked to me about what this position could mean for Columbia, but also for me in terms of being a person who would be in these rooms to help some of the decisions that were being made about where funding goes, who can support it, and that sort of thing. And so she kind of taught me into taking the job because I saw it as an opportunity to really be of service to my community. I'm getting a little long in the tooth. I turned a little older, and so now I'm thinking more about what kind of legacy I want to leave and what kind of
Yeah.
life I want to lead. And so this job gives me the opportunity to really kind of empower people, which I really appreciate. It gives me the opportunity to kind of provide opportunities for people that may not have them. And so being able to open doors and push down roadblocks for artists and arts organizations in Columbia has really been rewarding for me. It's certainly not easy work, especially during these times, but it's extremely rewarding. So I'm very fortunate to be able to be in a position right now.
Man, so let's back up to college.
Yeah,
You majored in communication.
I did.
What sparked that interest?
You want the truth, or you want me to tell you what I told my parents?
I need both.
Okay. So the truth is, I played baseball, and like most people that go to college playing sports, I thought I'd be a professional baseball player. So communications was an easy major. So I
Hey,
thought. So I majored in communications because I thought I could concentrate on baseball. But lo and behold, I got a very bad injury my senior year of college. I was a decent player, but I tore my quad my senior year. And so, as truth be told, the professional career didn't work out. But what that baseball career did do for me at Newberry was I got to meet some really neat people there. I got to meet a guy who was the president of our Indian club, which is kind of our athletic club at Newberry, Mr. Jerry Chitty. Um, and he had a friend down in Columbia at SCETV. And he said, hey, when I graduated, I couldn't find work. And so he called me, I called him, I can't remember. He said, there's a job at ETV I think you should apply for. He said, I got some people down there that work down there. I'll let them know you're coming. And so my baseball career kind of allowed me to have that relationship with him to be able to find that job after college. And then I realized I was pretty good at it, running cameras and taking direction. I got a pretty good eye for framing, and I found it very enjoyable. And as I kind of grew in that career, I also really enjoyed the storytelling aspect. Um, Being able to go with a person or interview a person and get their story and share that to people is something that I really appreciate. Similar to how your podcast, I know for you, it's probably very rewarding to hear all the stories of people and how people come about their careers and the things they do because it allows you to give them an opportunity to share their life with your audience. And so I really enjoyed that because storytelling and content creation allows people to know people. It allows people to humanize people, and it really is entryway in terms of conversation. So I really fell in love with the process of sharing stories. So the short story is, it was an easy major because I was going to be a professional baseball player. I told my parents that it was something that could challenge me, but I didn't know I was a pretty good student, but I didn't
yeah.
necessarily major in communication because I wanted to. It was something that I thought could get done easy and focus on baseball.
Wow. I would have, seeing how you had a lasting career in communication and the arts, I would have never guessed that's why. And it's interesting that you chose that particular. Did you have like any interest in it at all? Was it just, or it just was just plain like, hey, this looks like it's easy?
Well, I knew that communications covers a lot of things, right? And so I think that's also something that interests me. I think the thing that I tell kids a lot of times now is in terms of defining what you want to be when you grow up, you have to look at all aspects of a career field. There's so many opportunities and different spaces you can work in one specific career field. So communications also allowed me to be able to communicate now, to be able to talk, to be able to speak, but also be able to create content. So for me, it was an easy major, but like I said, once I got into it, I really fell in love with the process. I really fell in love with the idea of sharing stories. I really fell in the idea of capturing things and putting it back out there. So it's kind of the thing, it was this kind of good luck for me because it was something that I really enjoyed. I think sometimes the best things that happen to you can also be accidents.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
uh, SC ETV.
Yeah,
I'm South Carolinian, born and raised. So a lot of my childhood was spent on Channel 7. It was Channel 7
sure.
back then. Uh your time there, man. I know that you have come across a lot of different people, a lot of different stories. Like, what was your time like there? And it had to have been good because you stayed there a long time.
Yeah, it was incredible. Like I said, it was the joy, one of the joys of my life. It was, can you imagine every day you go into work and you get to go somewhere and meet somebody new and tell somebody's story. It was really really wonderful. We had a really great group of people that worked there. I grew up there. There were some older gentlemen that worked in my department that kind of showed me the way and led me the right way and taught me how to be a professional, how to be an adult. I started there when I was 22. So I tell people a lot of times that I literally grew up and became an adult at ETV. And I was very fortunate to have some tremendous mentors there in the station. Arthur Joseph and Joe Bowie and Keith Galloway and Bob Jones and Domino Bulware and Hardin Jones. And it was just really an amazing place to kind of learn and grow as a professional. And so, aside from my career growing there, I really was able to, like I said, kind of become an adult and understand professionalism and showing up on time and and taking care of your equipment. And so, those lessons that I learned there was so powerful. Aside from the fact that it gave me the opportunity to travel across all of the state of South Carolina, meeting incredible people and telling incredible stories. And like I said, and outside of the state, like I said, I traveled to Sierra Leone, I got traveled to Barbados to do a story, which is also incredible. And I think, for me, understanding the importance of telling stories to people that may not know them is it was really imprinted upon me there. Like I said to you earlier before we started recording, content and storytelling is a way that people have an entryway into understanding another culture, another people, and that is so important in terms of how we all get along in this world we share. So I was really fortunate to be able to do that for a long time.
Yeah, that man, I'm not even gonna go into the weeds of what's going on with, public TV and stuff like that.
Yeah,
But yeah, like that, yeah, SCETV has been a staple to a lot of everybody in South Carolina. Like, we can go and look back on certain moments, certain things that happened. Especially Reading Rainbow being on there, that was
yeah,
major. Like, I'm gonna be honest, I grew up in a family with educators, and my
of
mother was
course.
an educator, and I like to read and stuff, but it wasn't until Reading Rainbow that it felt cool.
Yeah, sure.
You see LeVar Burton on here and he's talking
Yeah,
about books, and being a young black boy in the South is just like, wow, like this is cool.
absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it is one of the most important institutions in the country, and I'll say that unabashedly. I think the service that public service television provides is really, really important. I grew up in Bamberg, and so we didn't have a lot of opportunities for art museums or art spaces or certain things, and so you could travel to all those places on public television. I've been fortunate to do some work, globally around public media, and I think the thing that I've also understood is that how important it is to be involved in the global conversation around public media. Access is something that's really, really near and dear to my heart. Access to opportunities is something that we all don't share equally. Here at One Columbia, we handle all the public art in our city. And I think it's really important that public art in our city represents our city, tells our city's history. So people always can't go and get it at a museum, but they can walk down the street and see it. And so I think there's just so many opportunities to engage the public when you make things accessible. And so, like I said, public media taught me the value of things being really accessible to people, all people.
And that's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about One Columbia. Let's say I'm not from South Carolina, or this is my first time in Columbia and I see the logo One Columbia. What is One Columbia, and what role does it play into the community?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's funny, when I first started, one of the things a lot of people ask me when I said, hey, I'm the new ED at One Columbia, they would say, well, what is One Columbia? So One Columbia was started back in 2012, I believe, by then Mayor Steve Benjamin. And the goal of One Columbia was to be the local arts agency for the city of Columbia. So what that means is we're a nonprofit, and so we are kind of a liaison between city government and the arts and culture community of Columbia, the artists, the arts nonprofits, and the citizens. And so we help relay messages to city government around what the city needs in terms of art. We kind of help advise the city on policies around public art or art policies. And we also try to find funding for artists and arts nonprofits to kind of do their thing in the city. We are funded through the city of Columbia through H-Tax, not fully funded. So we also do fundraising and I write grants. But again, our goal is really to kind of be a voice for the collective arts and cultural community of Columbia. The one thing that we're really trying to steer One Columbia to be is we are One Columbia. And so my goal has been to kind of connect all the amazing arts institutions in Columbia that are doing their incredible work to be kind of a central hub, a connector point. You know, if somebody at the CMA wants to do something with somebody at the Nickelodeon, I can be a connector. If somebody at the State Museum wants to do something with the Cobra Center, I can be a connector. You know, we got a tremendous ballet troops here in town. And just being a connect between even on a more granular level, connecting artists with artists. If there's an artist that's a singer or a drummer, he needs a bassist or a trumpet player. So we also have a hub on our website where all artists can register and put their profiles on our page. They're searchable. So if somebody's trying to find a painter for a mural, they can come to our website and find an artist and contact them. So we're really kind of a centralized hub for the arts and cultural community in Columbia. And again, also kind of having that direct line to city council and the mayor's office and to city officials when the citizens have concerns about what's going on in the arts community.
You know, you said something. You mentioned murals. For some reason, some people don't really think like murals are necessary. I'm not one of those people.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm biased because I love art, but could you talk about like the importance of what a mural does to a particular area?
Yeah, I think murals can absolutely beautify an area. I do think to those people's points, there are other ways to add public art instead of murals, but I also think a blank wall is a canvas. You know, I think there are plenty of opportunities to add color and vibrancy to a city through mural work. I also think it's important to add historical context through murals. We're currently working on a project right now that we're calling Cultural Layers. And so the goal is to add two new murals to locations in Columbia that represent the historic black neighborhoods that were displaced from downtown. And so we've been doing a lot of research around the neighborhoods, the people who live in those neighborhoods. And so we have an artist, Daniel Espada, I think his first name is Daniel. I can't remember his last name. He's an artist that we got on contract, and so he's going to be completing two murals that represent these communities through portrait and through mural work. And so I understand that public art, especially public art, really needs to also not just be beautiful, but also kind of have some historical value and tell stories. So it's a way for communities to know themselves and know what we were, because it's impossible to move forward if you don't know where you've been.
That's
Yeah,
so true. I talk about this often. Like even with ourselves, I
yeah,
think
absolutely.
it's good to take inventory of where we've come from. Like if you're into journaling, somebody gave me this idea. I never thought about it because I've written stuff that I've never looked at. In case sometimes I might have come across it, may have looked at it, but I was talking to a guest one time, and she was saying that she sets aside a time to actually go through certain journals, and so she can take stock of where she was and where she is now. And I was like, wow, that makes so much sense. It's like even though we go through things that may be traumatic or maybe life changing, we came out on the other side stronger. And it's like I
Absolutely.
think sometimes we forget about that, and that's like America pretty much. It's like you're trying to forget things, but those things are why we're here where we are now. And there's a generation of people who, the people who know the stories and who were living during those times, like the civil rights movement and different
Absolutely.
times like that, they won't be here for long. So if we're not sharing those stories, if we're not telling those stories, they'll essentially disappear.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like you said something earlier, we were talking about people kind of, shortchange themselves when they introduce themselves on your show. And I think that's one thing that a lot of people do is when they think about their life, they don't appreciate what they've been through to get to where they are. I had to kind of take stock of that a few years ago when I moved to New York. I left ETV and took a job in New York because it was a job description that I kind of created to do here in Columbia. But the station didn't want to let me do it, and so a buddy of mine got a job in upstate New York, and so I sent him this job description that I created, and he loved it. They flew me up for a job interview. Before I got ready to leave home, they'd already said, "Hey, I think we want to create this position for you and have you here." And so they created this position for me, and so I moved to New York for this position because I knew that there needed to be a position in the station that kind of audited content, for diversity, for inclusion, for voices, to make sure that everybody was included. Because again, it's really important to me that all stories, the stories we tell, include all voices, right? And so really having somebody that was the point person to kind of filter that through was really important. And the station in New York, WMHT, created a position for me called, and it was great. I had some incredible people that I worked with, and we really did really great work in terms of including all the voices in upstate New York. And I was really, really proud of that work. But again, like I said, to your point, it's really important that we keep these stories alive and we tell these stories in an inclusive way. I know DEI and diversity is kind of a banned word these days, but I believe diversity is our superpower.
Yeah.
I think the more diverse voices we include in conversations, in art, in spaces, it only makes us a richer, more deeper people. Um,
I agree with that 100%. I talked about that during the pandemic because there were a lot of people who were home and like really couldn't go anywhere. And so they leaned towards like when Clubhouse, the app came
oh
out,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
people were going to rooms that were specifically, their industry, their interests and stuff, but nobody was really going into different rooms to learn
Sure.
something new. And I think like during the pandemic, it caused a lot of people to be more selfish and to be more, these are my people here and I only care about what they say. But I like to talk to people who don't, necessarily do the same things I do or like the same things I like because that's how I discover new things. And
Absolutely.
that's how I, expose them to new things. I think that if you have a bunch of people around you who agree with everything you say, see your views the same way you see them, you're not going to grow and you're not going to learn. And it's funny to me how, we tell people, and I get it, you want to tell people to kind of curate their feed and what they look at or whatever, but some of these people are like avoiding change and they're avoiding being better. And so they look for certain things that kind of feed into their own reality. And I
Absolutely.
think that, with that sort of thing, I think we should just be open. Like you said, like when you're into the arts or whatever, when you can have a conversation with somebody and it be like a respectful conversation, because I think that's something that's lost too. People think because you disagree with them that you hate them. And it's just like, hey, I don't like oranges, but I didn't say anything was wrong, with apples. So how did we get
Right.
here? you know?
Right. Yeah, I think you're right. I think one of the bigger issues, and this is probably a bigger conversation outside of the arts, that I see is that people look for confirmation, not so much information now.
That's it.
That people really don't look to be informed. They have opinions and they want somebody to confirm what they believe. And so they source out those kind of things. But to your point, I think the thing that I'm learning as I'm getting a little older is the most important thing you can be, I think, is curious, to continue learning, to continue trying to grow, and also vulnerable. I've kind of started out, like I said, on the floor crew, and I've made my way through leadership, and now executive leadership. But the one thing that I tell people all the time is that I really focus on is being vulnerable and not knowing all the answers. I think sometimes when people get into leadership positions, they want to always have the right answer. But I'm quick to say, well, I don't know. Let's talk about it. Can we figure it out? And I also like people that challenge my thoughts. I never want to be surrounded by people that are just going to say, well, yes, that's fine, because maybe it's not fine, but let's explain to me why it's not, and we can talk about it. So, I always, Pamela Zeljak is my public art administrator, and I'm so grateful to have her on staff because she and I have really frank conversations about things. And she says, well, no, Xavier, I don't think we should do that. And I think that's fine because that's the way I think leadership works. That's where I think community works. And I'm also a huge advocate on community building. And I think, you can't build community being the center of community. I tell people all the time that if you want to build community, you have to have sacrifice. You have to sacrifice some of your ideas, some of your feelings, some of your willingness to be right, and embrace some of your willingness to be wrong to build a real cohesive community. And that's the one thing that I'm really working hard at One Columbia to do is to be a place of community, a place of listening. I first started this job. We don't have a ton of funding to give people, but I do have time, so I listen to everybody. I answer all my phone calls. I'm so accessible, probably to a point that I shouldn't be. But I feel like when you're trying to really get people's trust and build community,
Yeah.
you have to be accessible. So I give my cell phone number out to people. I give email out, of course, but people have my cell phone. I get calls all the time. And I don't mind that because I want people to understand that we are absolutely a grassroots organization. And we are also absolutely in the business of building community.
Looking at your background, I'm just thinking like I have not been to the new location. I've been to the previous location. I missed
Yeah.
the event you had. It seems like whenever stuff goes on that I want to go to, there's a family thing that happens that I can't miss. So, congratulations on your new location.
Yeah, that came about. The city of Columbia has been great. They've been really helpful in terms of letting us be in this space, the Keenan House over 801 Wildwood Avenue for free. This is actually the second space the city of Columbia has leased us for free. The first space, Mayor Rickman and I were talking about space for artists to work, and so there was an old empty police substation at the corner of Taylor and Assembly Street at the Taylor Street Garage. So it'd been empty for years. And so Mayor Rickman suggested that we can maybe use that space to create artist studios, which we did. So they leased us a space for 5 years for free. We had our first cohort of artists that just graduated last year. We just put our second cohort of artists in there this year. So we put 3 artists in there for a year for free. So they have studio space. They have keys. They can come and go as they please. They're there for open studios. They're there for First Thursdays. They're there for Saturdays. And so it's kind of a way to activate a space that's been empty for a while. And so, that's also something I'm really interested in figuring out is how do we reactivate spaces that are empty? You're not going to have to build a new space or to create something new. Sometimes when a space hasn't been used for a while, it can be repurposed for something else. And I think this has been a perfect example of kind of how city government, a nonprofit, we got some foundation sponsorship to fund it. We got some local businesses gave us some money to furnish the space. And so it's kind of that three-legged prong approach to supporting the arts in a city. You get the city government involved, you get nonprofit involved, and you also get private sector involved. And I think that's the model that I'm really trying to focus on in terms of how we fund and support the arts community here in Columbia.
I didn't know so much goes into art, and then just to hear that that space has been turned into a space for artists to create. And I see a lot, because I love art, and so I'm always looking at things with artists. And I used to draw and paint a long time ago, and I need to get back to it. But I always see like artists, and not any artists here, but say that there's no space for them, or it's certain places where they live where they aren't, I guess, respected, like they aren't pulled in as a part of the community. But how important is art to the community for anybody who's maybe thinking like, well, it's just art, or painting? We talked about the murals, but that's just art in general. How important is that to the community and in shaping the community?
Yeah, I think art is one of the most important things in a community. I think again we love art for art's sake, but art is able to intertwine with so many other things. Art can be a part of violent crime prevention. Art can be a part of helping mental health issues. There's so many things that art allows us entryways into. It also is a way of humanizing people. It's also a way of learning about other people's cultures. Art is in everything that we do, from the way we dress, from the music we listen to, the food we eat. I always find it funny when people say they aren't artists, but I say, well, you picked your clothes out today. That's art. Cola Fashion Week is a nonprofit in town that's doing tremendous work around fashion in
Yes.
Columbia. I think there are, culinary arts, music, sculpture, dance, poetry. I think poets, to me, always have their pulse on what's going on in the world. Our poet laureate Jennifer Bartell is an amazing poet. And I think there are things that artists are able to document that nobody else can. You can look back through history, and you can always find art in any civilized civilization telling the stories of those people through the art. The Greeks and all those things, Picasso and all those artists from back in the day were documenting history. So I think, and also just as an economic driver, right? I think you think about people come to town, they may want to go see a play or a show. The Coco Center has amazing shows all the time. The South Carolina Ballet with William Starr they got Nutcracker this weekend. So I think there's so many things that art contribute to our society aside from just being beautiful. Like I said, the economic engine that arts create in South Carolina is astronomical. And so when people come to a new city, they want things to go to, they want things to see and things to do, and art provides that. Like I said, I've been learning a lot. Like I said, my career is in television, but public media is kind of an artsy kind of station. So I've been learning a lot about art and the ways that it integrates itself into our society completely. It's not an add-on. It's the thing I tell a lot of people. It's not something that's extra. It's something that's needed. And having support from the city, having support from the state, and also fundraising. We do a little bit of that too. Is also super important because those dollars and that support goes directly back into our art community here in Columbia.
Normally I ask one particular question, but I'm going to ask you the same question, but I'm gonna ask it to you two different ways. So first, what's one thing about One Columbia that a lot of people may not know that you wish more people knew?
We are a very small staff. I have a staff of one full-time employee and I have two part-time employees, and we do a lot of work with that small staff. I think the one thing that I would love people to understand is that we are funded through the city, but we also need your support. We do fundraise. There's opportunities to donate to One Columbia, and those dollars go directly back into supporting the artists here in Columbia. Yeah, that would be the one thing I would really want people to know, and also that we are accessible. If you have questions, you have ideas, you have thoughts, and I'm open to all that. I tell people all the time, like the thing that I really learned about myself is that I don't have to have all the ideas, but I have to have ways to make those ideas happen. I'm not saying we can make them happen, but I'm certainly going to listen and see if we can make it happen through community work for sure.
Okay, and same question. So, what's one thing about you that most people may not know that you wish more people knew? Now, if anything, because that's kind of a personal one. So,
Yeah, no. I'm gonna be honest, Terrence. I'm a pretty open book. Like I
okay,
don't, I've gotten to the point in my life where I don't really have much to prove. So I'm very comfortable in my own skin. I really don't. There's really not much about me that people don't know. I love Columbia. I moved away, like I said, to New York, but I always had intentions of coming back because I think Columbia is an incredible city. I think Columbia is really at the opportunity right now for growth. There's so
yes,
many incredible things going on in our city, man. There's so many people doing amazing work. And the one thing that I'm really trying my best to do is create this kind of interconnectedness between everybody because we all are connected, whether we know it or not, no matter what space we work in. Um, and I just want people to understand that the more we do, the more we'll have. The more space there is, the more things going on, the more funding we can get. And having that cohesive idea of what we're trying to do in our city is super important. And I think One Columbia can be that space that can help that cohesion. So we're really working hard at trying to be that. So yeah, I enjoy cooking. I mean, I like being in the kitchen. I don't do as much as I used to, but I'm a pretty good cook. I like dabbling a little bit in the kitchen, and so maybe that's one thing that people don't know. I'm not
okay,
like Sanchez. I'm not like Chef Sanchez, a good friend of mine. But I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
okay, okay. One last question: what's your vision for One Columbia? Like, where do you see it in the next, let's just say, 5 years?
Yeah, that's a really great question. When I first started, I had a meeting with Nate from the Coger. He's the ED at the Coger Center. And he and I were talking about arts community in Columbia. He said, Xavier, you can't think about what's going to happen in the next year or two. You got to think about 10 years from now, 15 years from now, laying the foundation about. So you may not even see the fruits of your labor, but you're laying the foundation that later on things will be a certain way. And so for me, the goal, of course, is to really make One Columbia a centralized hub for all the arts and culture activity in Columbia. To be a place where people go for information, people go for a connection, people go for a community. To be a place that can, have grants that we give people to do things in Columbia. To be a place that can support artists financially a little more than we do now. We know we're really working hard at building our fundraising platform so all that money can really go back into our community. Because as much as everybody loves art, one of the things that artists really, really need is money.
Yeah.
And we don't like to ask artists to do anything for free because there's a talent involved there. And so we really want to make Columbia a place where artists can live, can work, can grow, can stay, and can add to our rich cultural fabric of what Columbia is. One of the things that I'm really interested in doing too is kind of adding to our public art landscape in a very strategic way. We had a public art intern a few years ago, and she did an amazing job of kind of cataloging all of our public art in our city. Where it is, what it is, who did it, gender, race, all these things. And so thinking about how we add art to our city that's diverse, that's inclusive, that's helping tell our stories. So when people come to the city, they can go walk down Main Street or through the Vista and learn about our communities and who lives here and who used to live there. So trying to add public art to our city in a way that makes sense to me is also something that's really important to me. But again, I really want One Columbia to be a place that people go to for support financially, emotionally, community building, and connection wise.
Okay, and I got another question. I just thought
Okay,
about
I'm ready.
something. I just thought about something when you were talking. There was man, this was a very long time ago, but there was this art project where they had a bunch of doors
Yeah.
all over Columbia, and at first it was kind of weird, but
Yep.
when I saw more, I was like, this is actually pretty cool. So, is there any plans or anything like that again, or is that something that happened? Because there was palmetto trees after that.
Yep, that's right. Maybe the Columbia Streams project did something similar with these fish they did. So it was something similar to that. But lots of cities around the country and around the world have different things that represent the cities, and they have artists paint them. And I was in Berlin a few years ago, and they have bears in Berlin. Some places have cows. So I think once we can find something that kind of represents Columbia. I thought the palmetto trees were
Me
fantastic.
too. I like those better. Yeah.
It was amazing, right? So maybe we revisit that project, on a different level. One of the things that we've been kicking around here in the office is some kind of mural festival. North Charleston does a mural festival every 2 years, and so they invite there's walls there in North Charleston. They paint over them every 2 years. They
Yeah.
invite muralists down, and so maybe trying to find a spot to do like a mural festival would be really kind of neat to kind of get some interchangeable art going on in the city. We've got the Finley Park reopening. There may be some opportunities to add some more public art to Finley Park. Pamela Zilger did an incredible job with the sculpture garden there, which is fantastic, which is going to rotate every 2 years. And so some of your listeners want to get to Finley Park and take a stroll through our sculpture garden, it's really, really fantastic. The city's done a really wonderful job with Finley Park. I'm really excited about what that park places, what that part's going to mean to the city of Columbia. It's located right downtown. It's amazing. They did a really wonderful job refurbishing it out. Really going to be exciting to see what that looks like in the future and how we can incorporate a lot of art and public art into that space.
Yeah, I haven't made it there yet. I did
Oh
ride
man, you got to
by.
get down, man.
Yeah, so I rolled by and I could have stopped, but I did. I told my wife we would go together. So
Yeah. It's kind of like watching a Netflix show, and you can't watch an episode without
yeah,
watching it.
yeah,
Yeah, so I understand that for sure.
yeah. Because I think the she was a child maybe when she visited her aunt up here the last
Yeah.
time she's been. But I went to
Okay.
Benedict,
Okay.
and I remember when it was Mayfest, and like Finley Park was a really nice park, and then over time it just changed.
Well,
But from the videos I've seen and pictures, I'm excited about checking it out now.
well, and I'll add one more thing. The Vista Greenway is this greenway that you can walk literally from Elmwood all the way to Finley Park, all the way to the Vista. And so the Lincoln Street Tunnel, we have a project going on right now. We're going to put a public art lighting project inside the Lincoln Tunnel that connects the Vista to Finley
Yeah,
Park. And so like Columbia should be a walkable city. And trying to kind of put public art on that Vista Greenway is a way I think to kind of get people to go walk and ride bikes. I was out in Atlanta a few years ago, and they have that belt line that goes around Atlanta. It's an incredible walking trail. There's so much public art there, and there's no reason why Columbia can't do the same thing. And so I think that the future is really bright. The city council and the mayor and the city government is really interested in kind of highlighting our Vista Greenway. And I do think public art can add to that tremendously because it gives people a reason to go there and see things and do things and be a part of it. So, we got great weather here in Columbia. You can almost ride a bike or walk, 12 months out of the year.
yeah.
And so if we got the ability to be able to be on that greenway and go from, 5 Points, to the Vista, to Main Street, and connect all of our districts in Columbia, it'll be an amazing thing. So I look forward to kind of figure out a way to kind of have public art be a part of connecting all those districts in Columbia.
Okay, man. Well, we've run out of time. Do you have any final words before we get into everything else?
Yeah, I'll just say thanks for having me. I don't go on podcasts unless I listen to them, and so I went out and listened to some of your podcasts and like that. You've had some tremendous guests, and I think the work that you're doing for our community in terms of sharing people's stories is really important. So thank you for what you do. I recorded a podcast for a while. My wife and I did. It's not easy work. So I know how much effort goes into getting these things done and getting released. And so the number of episodes you have means there's a tremendous commitment to getting it done. So thank you for lending space for people to share their stories and their voices. So thank you.
Oh man, I appreciate you. I'm so glad that you were my guest. This I learned a lot from this interview as well, and this is information that I'm sure other people need to hear. Also, before I let you get out of here, let the people know how they can support One Columbia, how they can contact you, any information you want to share.
Yeah, so our website is onecolumbiasc.com, and we actually just released our new website last month. So we had a tremendous upgrade on our website. It looks fantastic.
Yeah.
The folks at 37 Gears was our web developer, a local web developer here in town, and we were so happy with the work they did. You can find all my information there. You can find all our information there about public art, about art calls, artist support, and also there's a place there to donate to One Columbia. Again, we are a nonprofit. Your donation is tax deductible, and all your donations go directly back into supporting the artists here in Columbia. I think that's something that's really important. That we are a very local organization. We are very Columbia specific. Of course, we do some stuff outside of Columbia, but our focus is building up the art and arts community and culture community here in Columbia, South Carolina. So we're extremely grassroots. We're very approachable and contactable. So please reach out. My email is xavier@onecolumbiasc.com. I'm always on it. I won't give my cell phone number out because I think people will. But if you email me, I'll give it to you. How about that? If you email me,
Yeah.
I'll give you my cell phone number. And I look forward to talking to anybody that wants to talk. Like again, I make space for everything and everybody, probably to a fault, but that's just who I am.
Xavier, thank you again for being on the show and sharing just a little bit about your life and a great deal about One Columbia. I really appreciate that. Everybody, the information will be in the show description. So check out One Columbia, make a donation, and remember, as always, keep pushing forward. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Brown Sugar Cafe podcast. Once again, I'm your host, Terrence B. Elmore, and this is the place where poetry meets conversation. Hit that follow button and turn on your notifications so you won't miss an episode. Check out my blog, thebrownsugarcafe.blog. Also connect with me on Instagram at thebrownsugarcafe. Hope you enjoyed this episode, and as always, remember, keep pushing forward.